Matt Bernie, you're taking a look at a mid-card pick four at Laurel Park on Saturday afternoon. Races 5 through 8. You've got a couple of stakes races sprinkled in there, and sprinkled might be the key word to this entire sequence. I'm going to hopefully give you a little bit of guidance for whatever the circumstances may be, because it sounds like there was rain in the area, the Maryland Laurel Park area, on Friday as well as Saturday afternoon. So there's a real chance that some of these races come off the turf. There's a real chance that there are a number of scratches. I'm hopefully going to give you a little bit of guidance one way or the other, whether it's on the main track or on the turf course. Let's start off with race number 5. This is an allowance group of horses going a mile and a 16th on the turf course. If we're looking at this from the turf standpoint, I'm looking at 3 horses, the 7, the 12, and the 13. The 7 horse is Tap the Moment, 15-1. Forest Boyce has the mount, goes out for Louis Bosley. I thought the maiden score most recently was solid, and I think you also have to factor in that came over yielding ground. And if you do get some rain and it stays on the turf, you would imagine it's going to be less than firm. I like horses that have proven themselves over some sort of less than firm going. This horse did just that, 15-1 on the morning line. I think he might get some good value there. As far as the other two that I've mentioned, the 12 Bay Bridge, look, I can understand anyone that says this horse probably is just a notch or two below. But at the same time, when you look at the running style, figures to be forwardly placed, we have seen so many times over the past, whether it's, I'm not just saying Maryland, but anywhere, sometimes you get testing ground, and pace really carries. It's difficult for those horses to come from the back of the pack and come with a serious bid. Bay Bridge figures to be forwardly placed, maybe not outright on the lead, but I would imagine pretty darn close to it. I think Bay Bridge at 8-1 is interesting. And then the 13, Daddy's Cozy. I chased Daddy's Cozy down at Gulfstream Park over the winter for Michael Matz. And he ran well enough. Unfortunately, he just could never get over the hump. He finally broke the maiden at Pimlico 2 starts back over good going again. And you're going to see that that's sort of a common theme for me taking a look at this pick 4 sequence. I want horses that have had some success over less than firm going, because even if it stays on, I have a hard time imagining that it's going to be firm going. So the 13 is also a horse that I'll use as far as the turf is concerned. If we're looking at it and it gets washed off, and I'm not going to go too deep into the washed off horses as far as the analysis is concerned, but I like the 1, the 5, and the 6. The 1 is worth his salt for Jamie Ness. Again, a horse that figures to be forwardly placed, has done some good things on the main track in the past. The wet track numbers aren't great, 0 for 3 thus far and only 1 time in the money, but really has proven himself on the main surface. The 5 horse is one of the MTO's. Legends Hope goes out for Ed Mahar. I think there's a scenario where, again, now this horse is also crossing it on Friday, so take a look and see if this horse actually runs Friday or they wait for the race on Saturday. Again, from a speed figure standpoint, a little bit on the light side, but you always have to respect the MTOs. And the 6, Good Luck Jonathan. Good Luck Jonathan is a horse that has won already over a wet track on the main surface. Broke the maiden most recently. That was a race that came off the turf. I understand a lot of people look at those horses and say it took you 13 starts to break your maiden. I look at it and say, bang, you finally figured it out. Figures to sit some sort of a stalking trip. Doesn't have to have the lead. I think that's an important piece to take a look at as well. So those would be the 3 horses for me if this event were to get taken off the grass. Let's move on to race number 6. And this is sort of the linchpin for me with the sequence, whether it's wet, whether it's dry, whatever it may be. Wanted to take a little bit of a stand in here. This is one of the stakes races, the Miss Disco. $75,000 is the purse. 6 furlongs on the main track. You can go a few ways in here. The morning line favorite, you got Majestic Reason down on the inside. You get the 5 Limited View. Makes a lot of sense. Caught Dreamin' makes some sense as well. I'm going to single the 2. Zorali. Zorali goes out for Dale Capuano. Blinkers go on for the first time. This is a horse, whether it's wet or it's dry. I have a fair amount of confidence in this horse. Most recently, tried the turf, didn't work. Now we go back to the main track, and you can see the overall record on the main track. 2 for 3. You've got a couple of nice victories. 1 over a sloppy sealed racing surface, 1 over a fast main strip. That was in the career debut. I don't think has to have the lead, but at the same time, it is worth noting both victories thus far have come outright on the lead. And even if that's the case, I think Zorali could clear off to the front. It might be a bit of a, I hate to say standout, but this is a horse that I'm very interested in. I'll probably bet just by himself, or by herself anyway. She's a 3-year-old filly by Wiseman's Ferry. Daniel Centeno has the mount. This is the kind of horse to me, if you get anywhere near that 4-1 morning line, I think this is an interesting spot. I'm going to single the 2, Zorali, in the 6th race. That's the Miss Disco Stakes that is on the main track, regardless of what the weather decides to do. Race number 7 is another one of the stakes races in this sequence. It's the Jamila. Again, we're going to give you kind of 3 horses for the turf and 3 horses for the main track. And they may be the same, especially in this instance. With the turf, if it stays on, I like the 3, the 8, and the 9. The 3 is Crab Cakes, who might just be the best horse in this race, regardless of surface, but she's trying turf for the first time. I'm more interested in her, or I have more faith in her if this race ends up on the main track as opposed to the turf. But at the same time, again, she might just be the best horse in the race. So first time turf, I still need to use her. Those other two that I made mention of, the 8 and the 9, the 8 Great Soul, he's another one, or she's another one. Got to get that straight. These are the girls. She's another one that, regardless of whether it's on the turf or it's washed off onto the main track, I want to use Great Soul for Tom Proctor. This is a horse that's had success over a wet racing surface on the main track. You can't miss that in the upper right-hand corner in the career box. 3 for 3 on off-going. Had some success on the main track, obviously. And then as far as the turf racing is concerned, never been out of the exacta in 4 lifetime starts. The 8 Great Soul is a main play for me as well. And the 9 is my sister sledge. As far as turf is concerned, this is a filly that I've always had a little bit of a thing for. I've liked her going a little bit longer, but I have to be honest, I was impressed with that run 2 starts back. That was her first start off a little bit of a layoff, and it was her first time going 5.5 in quite some time. And then you go all the way back to September of last year at Laurel Park. She went 5.5 furlongs as well, and she came with another big late rush. I wonder maybe if this is actually what she wants. Maybe I was wrong all along, that she wants to go shorter distances. She's 6-1 on the morning line, breaking from the far outside. If it stays on the turf, I think she's interesting. As far as coming off the turf, I have the 2, the 3, and the 8. The 2 is the main track only, My Magician. Don't love this horse, but again, it's simply put, you have to respect the MTOs in spots like this. There's a reason that they're entered like this. The 3 is Crab Cakes, who, like I said, might just be the best horse in the race, and we know what her best game is, the main track. She's unexposed at this point on the turf. We don't know if she can handle it or not, but on the main track, we know she's probably the best horse in the race. And the other one that I will use is the 8 Great Soul, again, for Tom Proctor, made mention. Has had some success on the main track and is 3 for 3 on off going. So those would be the horses that I would use if this race were to come off of the turf. And now we get to the final leg, race number 8 in this spot. This is another allowance race, 1 mile and a 16th on the turf. If it stays on the turf, only going to go 2 deep. Going to use the 5 and the 11. The 5 horse is Natural Notion. This is a horse I would also use on the main track, but we'll get to that momentarily. I was impressed with that run 2 starts back. Big effort. That was the 3rd time on the turf. There is a little bit of concern about how far does this horse want to go, but just the way that she ran 2 starts back, it makes me think that, you know what, turf and additional distance not going to be too much of an issue for her. I want to use her. And the 11 horse is the Captain Obvious horse, I believe, and that's Chubby Star for Horatio De Paz. De Paz is a great job. She's the class of the field. She has all the figures. She's run well enough over less than firm going. You can go back. She has a victory in an N1X that was at Keeneland back in April of last year, and then she came back and she ran second against the boys in the Murphy down at Pimlico last year. So Chubby Star is the Captain Obvious horse. If this race stays on the turf, she's strictly the horse to beat. You probably don't get the 9 to 5 morning line. She probably goes off in the odds-on range. If you're looking for horses to use if it comes off, I threw 4 of them out there: the 3, the 4, the 5, and the 7. The 3 is an MTO as well as the 4 horse. You look at it from a wet track standpoint. The 3 horse, Emma's Diamond Diva, 1 for 2, 2 times in the money. The 4 horse, Mila Jane, 2 for 6, 4 times in the exacta from 6 lifetime starts on wet going. I think you have to use both of them. The 5 horse, I already talked about, Natural Notion. I think this is just an interesting spot, whether this stays on the turf or they switch it over to the main track. And then the number 7 horse, Irish Access. This one, probably a little bit slow as far as figures are concerned, and perhaps we have plateaued. You see, you've got 5 consecutive starts, whether it's turf or dirt, where this filly has just been living in that sort of mid to high 60 range. But at the same time, I think there's a scenario where she works at a decent enough trip. She has yet to try a wet track, but the blames usually are okay there. And I think there's a scenario, again, where she might work out a decent trip. And at odds of 10 to 1, I would certainly throw her in. So it's a fun sequence. Races 5 through 8 at Laurel Park on Saturday afternoon. Hopefully Mother Nature cooperates with us. And hopefully, even if she doesn't, maybe this is giving you a little bit of an inkling where you can go one way or the other. Base bet is 50 cents. You can play it over on DRF bets. All sorts of good stuff. Let's hope it stays on the turf, and let's hope Mother Nature cooperates. Fun sequence. Race number 5 is the kickoff leg of this sequence. This pick 4 down at Laurel Park Saturday afternoon. Scheduled post time for the first leg is 3:10 Eastern. Best of luck.